The recent investigations acknowledge Ukraine's remarkable progress in following the recommendations and resolving the issues serve as a pivotal milestone in opening the path towards EU for the country. To be EU de facto and de jure, this decision is not merely a recognition of Ukraine's unwavering dedication to European values, but also a strategic imperative for the EU's own security and prosperity. Let me explain you why in our weekly episode. Good afternoon, this is Henry Keon on UATV English, giving you the hard truth in easy terms directly from Ukraine. It is already clear even to haters, Ukraine has demonstrated unwavering resolve in its pursuit of EU integration amidst Russia's full-scale military aggression. Despite the immense challenges, we have diligently adhered to the European Commission's 7 recommendations, achieving without false modesty an outstanding completion rate. This unwavering commitment to reforms underscores not only Ukraine's readiness to embrace the EU's standards and values, but also otherwise, EU needs us. As if Europe could have needed more anyone, someone who spills his blood for European values without even being officially and actually invited to the party. Ukraine's accession will also serve as a signal to the guys on the other side. All these autocracies and dictatorships of this world are watching quite closely. Ukraine accelerated its efforts during recent weeks, adopting in the first reading relevant legislation boosting institutional capacity of the National Anti-Corruption Bureau and upgrading competences of the corruption prevention agencies. Legislative changes on national minorities have been presented by the government to be adopted by Ukraine's parliament next week. And so we have fulfilled our obligations. It is time for the European Council to act accordingly. The EU, we hope, will stand united in its support for Ukraine's accession bid, not only as a testament to Ukraine's progress, but also as a symbol of European solidarity in the face of aggression against it and its values. European Ukraine will not only reinforce the bloc's political and economic strength, but also significantly enhance its security stance. Ukraine's potential is capable of contributing to the European Green Deal, trans-European networks, cybersecurity and food security. Moreover, Ukraine's membership will serve as a beacon of hope for other aspiring democracies, demonstrating that the EU remains a steadfast champion of democratic values, and it is time for these values to be not only spoken, but made a reality.
I spoke with President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. Of course, we talked about the European Union's preparation of a decision to open accession negotiations with Ukraine. We are doing everything our country has to do. We also talked about the continuation of the EU's support for our country next year.
Let alone that such a decision will be a powerful motivator for our own continued journey towards a prosperous, democratic future within the European family. And let me remind you again that it actually will also serve as a signal to these guys on the other side. Again, autocracies, dictatorships in the world, and they are not less important, and they are watching. During the wintertime, Russia will continue its policy of genocide of Ukrainians by trying to freeze millions to death. Putin's mantras that Russia is ready for negotiations are merely negotiations on Ukraine surrenders, as he hopes. However, there are major differences compared to the previous winter. First, Ukraine is better equipped thanks to support from many partners and friends around the globe. Ukraine now has way better air defense capabilities than a year ago, including Patriot, IRIS-T and others. Second, the aggressor has also learned to make his mistakes more effective, unfortunately. Russia, right through the loopholes in international sanctions, is buying and producing more missiles and more kamikaze drones. We are thankful for every help that is provided now or will follow in these hard months to come. What we need the most to stop the Russian winter terror is air and missile defense, both weapons and ammo, powerful equipment compatible with post-Soviet grid, and, should Ukraine's grid be extensively damaged, direct power supply from the EU. Ukraine is deeply grateful to its partners, and these are not just words. You keep my house warm just as well, for instance, so here is a big thank you from me personally, dear world. Also, let me add to the theme, as a sort of an answer to those victims of wild extreme media populism, so fancy these days, all these talks about war fatigue, etc., etc. During an Oval Office address last month, Joe Biden highlighted the benefit to the United States manufacturing sectors when making the case that Republicans should support the $60 billion for Ukraine contained in the $106 billion emergency supplemental. A faction of GOP members has fought for the funding, arguing that U.S. is spending money to help Ukraine rather than focusing on problems at home. And so Joseph Biden said, I quote, "We send Ukraine equipment sitting in our stockpiles. And when we use the money allocated by Congress, we use it to replenish our own stores, our own stockpiles with new equipment." According to this map obtained by Politico, Pennsylvania has received $2,364 billion in investments to build munitions and tactical vehicles for Ukraine, the most of any state. Meanwhile, Arizona is close second with $2,259 billion. Texas and Arkansas received $1,449 billion and $1,478 billion, respectively, while Florida got $1,011 billion. As Department of Defense leaders have said previously, support for Ukraine has mobilized the U.S. defense industrial base in ways that haven't been seen in decades. Department of Defense spokesperson Jeff Jurgensen said it in a statement when asked for comment. Our industry partners all across the nation have stepped up to meet the kind of production, manufacturing, and infrastructure investment capabilities to directly support U.S. commitments to Ukraine, and that will build the kind of industrial base capacity the U.S. need for the future. So in case you and maybe some Republicans were worrying about the endgame of this war, it depends not only on us, Ukraine, but also on us, the world, that should be standing for human values all across the globe. Otherwise, the war will inevitably come to your doorstep. Ukraine will continue to do everything possible and sometimes even not possible to bring more air defense systems, more ammunition, more military equipment, not only to provide assistance to our people on the battlefield, but also to protect civilians. The Second International Summit on Food Security, Grain from Ukraine, took place in Kyiv, Ukraine on November 25th, 2023. President Zelensky's humanitarian initiative has been prolonged with more than 100 million accumulated for its goals by donor countries. Russia has been destroying Ukrainian grain terminals and port infrastructures with deliberate missile attacks. It is no mistake. No, the goal is very Russian, blackmailing countries in need with a possible food crisis. If that is not a crime against humanity, then I don't know what is. While African countries already suffer from droughts, food shortages and high prices, Russia is weaponizing food, demonstratively destroying grain that could feed millions of people. Ukraine is more than just grateful to our leaders and countries who help us confront Russian terror and protect lives. Every nation in the Danube region and across Europe that supports our solidarity lanes proves that Russia will no longer succeed in destroying whole nations as it did in the 20th century.
Russia has no place in the International Maritime Organization, nor in its governing bodies, because no one in recent decades has caused greater harm to free navigation than Russia. It must be held accountable for this, and such accountability of the aggressor will guarantee the preservation of global trust in our organization. Volodymyr Zelensky, President of Ukraine, added to the participants of the Assembly of the International Maritime Organization.
So Ukraine sends a strong, loud and clear message to the world. All countries that rely on Ukrainian food, we are committed to prevent global famine and will not allow Russia to blackmail the world by deliberately blocking ports or in any other way. Following Russia's unilateral breach of the Black Sea Grain Initiative, Ukraine against all odds opened our seaports to humanitarian shipping and managed to establish a new grain route for food exports. Before Russia's full-scale invasion, Ukraine's contribution to the world food market was equivalent to feeding about 400 million people, not even including us ourselves in Ukraine. Back then, our state planned to increase the number of Ukrainian food consumers in the world to 1 billion. The day will come when it will be so. And the day will come when African countries should look truth dead in the eye. The one who is trying to buy you off with our stolen Ukrainian grain will continue to rob and blackmail until stopped. So please, dear Africa, make a careful choice between your own future, African future, and Russian one, because the latter is nothing but the past, the terror, blackmail, war and hunger. And looking back into the history of Africa, I ask myself, haven't Africans just had enough of that already? And now time for more on UATV English. You ask hard questions, we answer in easy terms. And now the question of the week, which is asked by the Porky. Why do people call Ukraine the Ukraine and not just Ukraine? Well, people call Ukraine the Ukraine and not just Ukraine mainly because they are people. You know, the ones who make mistakes. And hopefully learn from them. So it is not the Ukraine, of course, just Ukraine. It is the Ukrainian people, though, who, for example, have a will to fight a way bigger enemy and win. Yes. And the Ukrainian people are living in Ukraine. No the. So yes, you're right. The preposition they in the addressing our country of Ukraine is wrong. The US Ambassador William Taylor once said that using the Ukraine implies disregard for Ukrainian sovereignty. Also, the official Ukrainian position is that the Ukraine is both grammatically and politically incorrect. You may say that for us in Ukraine, it should be way more important how one feels about Ukraine than how one calls it. Well, let us make it a bit more personal so you'll get the whole point. If your name, real name I mean, would be, I don't know, John, would you like to be addressed as Joe just because it is the same letter both names start with? Just as I thought. So call us the Republic of Ukraine if you want, or the United States of Ukraine even. However, if you respect us and you stand together with us against the dictatorship and autocracy, please do yourself a favor and not only look, but also be respectful. And when talking about us, learn to call us the way we like it and not anyone else. And we'll do the same. It's called manners, and manners maketh men, as you probably might notice. Thank you. It was me, Henry Keane, doing my best to break the hard truth in easy terms for you in our weekly wrap-up this evening. Please find UATV English online, and if you like what we do for you, like us in return. Comment and subscribe. Let us know what you think. Your opinion matters the most. Ask us a question, and next time in our weekly episode, I'll do my best to answer it. So that's it, folks. Stand for Ukraine, stay safe, and tune for more on UATV English. See you very soon.